intercostal nerve, they are also classified as typical or atypical, as we have classified the spaces as typical and atypical based on the typical nerve will confine within the intercostal space, and we have classified that from space third intercostal space to the that is the sixth intercostal space. These four spaces, they are considered as the typical intercostal space, and therefore the nerves in this space, okay, that is the thoracic third nerve to the thoracic sixth nerve, is also called as the typical intercostal nerve. Since our question is for a typical intercostal space, we will remain confined to the T3 to T6 spinal nerves, ventral rami of the spinal nerve, which are called as typical intercostal nerve. Okay, that means the intercostal nerves are these ventral rami. Okay, you know what is ventral rami? See this is a cross section of a spinal cord. This is the dorsal root, this is the ventral root. It forms a trunk, and trunk divides into two rami. That is the dorsal ramus here, which goes on to the back side to supply the muscle of the back and the skin, and this is then from the trunk, this is the ventral ramus. Okay, ventral ramus in the intercostal space. So this the intercostal nerves are, and this ventral ramus is also said to be the intercostal nerve in the intercostal space when it is present in the intercostal space. Okay, and as there are 11 intercostal spaces, and thus there should be 11 intercostal nerve, that is from T1 to T11. Okay, T1 to thoracic 1 to thoracic 11, ventral ramus of the spinal nerve, they lie in the intercostal space. That's why they are called as the intercostal nerves. But then these nerves are only from the T3 to T6 are typical, rest of the others are atypical, and I have told you the reason. And but the T12 now, okay, it is thoracic, but it don't lie within the intercostal space because there is no intercostal space below the T12 rib, and then this nerve T12 nerve is called as the subcostal nerve. Let us now come to the course and relation of this typical intercostal nerve. We will come to the course and relation of typical, that is from T3 to T6. Okay, a typical intercostal nerve, after its origin, okay, close to their intervertebral foramina. See here, I will just draw in this diagram so you can see it simultaneously the relations also. Okay, relation also. After its origin from intervertebral foramina, from dorsal and ventral root to the trunk, then this nerve, okay, it lies in the intercostal space. See here, I just will draw here try to draw it into the yellow color. Okay, so I am drawing this in yellow color. It is the ventral ramus, okay, or intercostal nerve, okay, which is running in the intercostal space. It is running in the intercostal space. Okay, to begin with here, okay, in the posterior-most part of the intercostal space, this nerve lies between parietal pleura and posterior intercostal membrane. See here, I have given this green color line as a posterior intercostal membrane, which was continuation posteriorly of the internal intercostal muscle. So this nerve lies on the posterior intercostal membrane, so it is its posterior relation. And then in its medial most part, it lies onto the parietal pleura. Okay, I mean say it is covered by the parietal pleura. Here I have drawn a muscle which I will just remove it because it is not in the upper part. Okay, that was the subcostalis. Okay, so I will draw it again when I will come to this. Okay, so this is the parietal pleura, so I will give its name parietal pleura. So it lies between parietal pleura and the posterior intercostal membrane. Okay, Now within the intercostal space, then it will lie in the costal groove. Soon it will lie, because costal groove is in the middle part of the rib. Okay, soon it will lie in the costal groove below the intercostal vein and artery. Okay, below the intercostal vein and artery. Let me draw the vein first in this intercostal space. Okay, between the internal intercostal and innermost intercostal muscle, this is the vein here. Okay, blue color structure is vein here. Then come the artery, that is the intercostal artery, about which will learn soon. Okay, this will be the intercostal artery, and then deep to it will lie the nerve, and I will try to draw it with the yellow color if you are able to see. Otherwise I will draw it with the black color. I will draw it, I think better I will draw it. You can zoom this area and see this. I am just drawing with the wrong color, that is black, with the pencil color here, so you can see it. So this is a nerve. So I will call this as nerve so that you can identify that this is the nerve, intercostal nerve. So this intercostal nerve is now lying in the subcostal groove. Okay, it is lying, and its relation with the other structure I have shown you here. Okay, I am now in the most part of its course, the nerve along with the intercostal vessels, will run between these two muscles. It will run between these two muscles, that is the internal intercostal and innermost intercostal. Okay, I am trying to draw it with the yellow color. Okay, it will run between the internal intercostal muscle and the innermost intercostal muscle. Near the anterior end of the intercostal space, let us go up to the anterior end of the intercostal space. This will cross. Okay, to which structure it will cross? It will cross to the internal thoracic artery. There will be a separate video on internal thoracic artery if you don't know. This is an internal thoracic artery, and I am just going to show you now also. This is internal thoracic, so it is crossing anteriorly to the internal thoracic artery. So okay, or internal mammary artery it is also called sometimes. So it will cross anteriorly and then finally close to the lateral margin of sternum. It will pierce first to the internal intercostal muscle. It will first pierce to the internal and then it will pierce to the anterior intercostal membrane. Then it pierces to the anterior intercostal membrane, and it will comes out, okay, from the intercostal space as the anterior cutaneous nerve of thorax. This will be called as anterior cutaneous nerve of thorax. So this is anterior cutaneous. So each space will contain one anterior cutaneous nerve of the thorax, right? At least one nerve is there in the anterior cutaneous nerve of the thorax. Okay. Now this is the course and its relations. Okay, relation with each other. So we have completed the course and relation of the typical intercostal nerve. Okay, course and relation of a typical intercostal nerve. Right. Let us come to the branches. What are the branches of these nerves? Now, in this, I will use this diagram to show you the branches. Okay. Now, the branches are number one category of the branch is number one is written here. Rami communicantes. Rami means the two ramus are there. That is the gray ramus and white ramus. So it is called as rami communicantes. So this branch, as soon as it will become into the, before it will go into the subcostal groove, where very close to the trunk, as soon after it origin here, this will give a branch which will go to the sympathetic ganglion, which are arranged in front of by the side of the vertebral column. Okay, sympathetic chain is there, and this will send a branch. Each intercostal nerve will send a branch which is called as the white ramus communicantis. White ramus communicantis. Okay, so this is the communicantis, is the white ramus communicantis, and from this the neurons of this sympathetic ganglion, the axon will arise which is unmyelinated, hence it will be called as the gray rami communicantis. White was myelinated, so this will be called as gray ramus communicantis. So these two rami, they are the first branch given by that of the intercostal nerve. Okay, all 11 will give, not only typical, all 11, that is the rami communicantis. Let us come to the second branch. Second branch given by this, there are innumerable multiple branches, very small, unnamed, and they are called as muscular branches. And to which muscle they are going to supply? Okay, we have just learned the three muscle. That was the external intercostal, internal intercostal, and innermost intercostal. All these muscles, they are supplied by this nerve, intercostal nerve. In addition to the subcostal, okay, and the after that the sternocostal. Subcostal and sternocostal are also supplied by the muscular branches from the intercostal nerve, all intercostal nerves. Okay, they will supply to these three muscles. So what is the nerve supply of the muscles? Okay, which we have learned, it is the intercostal nerve. And what is the action of these muscles? These muscles, they are the muscles of respiration. Okay, and they elevate the ribs during the respiration. Elevation of the rib is because of these three muscle, external, internal, and innermost intercostal, while subcostalis and sternocostalis, they depresses the costal ribs, okay, and costal cartilages. Okay, so this was the function. Now coming to the next branch from this intercostal nerve is the anterior cutaneous branch, which we have already seen here, that it will pierce the muscle and the membrane to become an anterior cutaneous nerve of the thorax. Okay, so this is the anterior cutaneous branch and terminate here, anterior cutaneous branch, okay, of the thorax. This will divide ultimately after piercing. One will go to the lateral side, another will go to the medial side, and will supply the skin, okay, in front of the sternum and by the side of the sternum. Okay, by the side of the sternum. Now this is the anterior cutaneous branch. Okay, then we come to a branch which is called as lateral cutaneous branch. This branch is the lateral, so anterior cutaneous and then the lateral cutaneous, which is the large branch, cutaneous branch. It is given on the lateral side of the chest. Okay, in the mid axillary line, somewhere near the mid axillary line, this is given. Okay, this branch is given, which soon divides into a proximal and a distal branch, not proximal, anterior and posterior branch. So this is called as the lateral cutaneous branch, and this is responsible for the supply of the skin, intercostal area of the lateral aspect of the thoracic wall. Okay, lateral aspect. Sometime it may be so happen that, or usually it happens, not sometime, that the branches of the lateral cutaneous nerve may extend right up to where the anterior cutaneous branches are ending, or anterior cutaneous branch may go backward till they just reach close to that of the anterior branch of the lateral cutaneous. Similarly, the posterior branch from here, the posterior ramus, okay, cutaneous branch, they supply the area which is posterolateral aspect of the chest. Thorax, posterolateral aspect of the thorax. So these are the cutaneous branch which are responsible for the skin okay, just covering to that of the thoracic region, right. So this was the lateral cutaneous branch. And lastly we come to a branch which is called as the collateral branch. What is a collateral branch? Okay, now near the angle of the rib, okay, when it comes to the angle of the rib, this now comes near the angle of the rib, okay, where it is the beginning of the posterior intercostal membrane is there, beginning at that side, okay. The nerve gives a branch which is called as collateral branch. Here I have shown you here collateral at the same level, but it goes down, okay. This was the lateral cutaneous, this here is the anterior cutaneous, and this is the lateral. So this is the collateral branch given at the angle of the rib. Then this branch goes down in the intercostal space between the two muscles, innermost and the internal intercostal muscle, and then it runs along with this main trunk, okay, of the nerve, main trunk of the nerve, that is intercostal nerve, but at a lower level near the upper border of the lower rib. Let me draw it here, near the upper border of the lower. Again I will draw it with the black pencil. This is the collateral branch. Now collateral branch, this is the collateral branch, very thin, very difficult to find, it's so thin, okay. The collateral branch is so thin, it's difficult to find. And here will be the artery also of the collateral, as we will learn just now, and then the vein will be also. So these are collateral which run within the same space, okay, but one, the main trunk running in the subcostal groove with the upper rib, and then its collateral branch will goes, okay, along with it into the upper border of the lower rib, upper border of the lower rib it will go here, right. Okay, this many branches were there. That means the branches of the intercostal nerve, a typical intercostal nerve we are talking of, because they are confined within the intercostal space, third to sixth space. Let us come to the next part, okay. And what is the next part? It is the intercostal artery. See this? This is the intercostal artery. So we come now to the intercostal artery. Okay. This is the intercostal arteries, the D subdivision of the question. And since we are dealing with the typical intercostal space only, so you can call it as the blood supply of a typical intercostal space. There may be a short note like that. Okay, now there are two different arteries, okay, two set of the arteries rather I will say, which will supply a single intercostal space, okay, or a typical intercostal space. Thus each typical intercostal space there are two arteries. One is the anterior intercostal artery, okay, and then another is the posterior intercostal artery. So this is posterior and this is the anterior intercostal. That means each space, typical space and also the atypical also, okay, they are supplied by the two intercostal artery, that is single posterior intercostal artery and two anterior. That's why I have written here arteries, anterior intercostal arteries and posterior intercostal artery. One is the posterior and two are the anterior intercostal. Let us come first to the anterior intercostal artery. So what is an anterior? How it supplies to a single intercostal space. Now this diagram I have drawn very rough. Sternum you just draw very roughly along with me, and this is the costal cartilage here. So any typical space you can imagine that this is a typical intercostal space, and this is the costal cartilages are here, and then this will be rib. Just to show you, this is the rib is here, okay, this is the rib is here, and then you can see there are two intercostal spaces, okay, enclosed in the three costal cartilages and the ribs, right. Let us see this. Deep to the costal cartilages on either side of the sternum okay, about a 1.5 inch away from lateral margin, there is going this artery, and this artery is called as internal mammary artery or internal thoracic, which arises from the subclavian artery in the neck, and then it comes into the thorax, okay, deep to the anterior wall of the thorax. Right, this internal intercostal artery, I'm sorry, not internal, the internal mammary artery, or this artery, this gives, okay, this gives two branches in each of the space, each of the intercostal space. This gives two branches, okay, one near the lower border and one near the upper border of the lower rib, okay. So two arteries are given in this, okay. So each intercostal space you will see two arteries. Just draw these two arteries, okay. They are arising from the internal thoracic artery or internal mammary arteries, and then they are running towards the lateral side, not medially towards sternum, but they are running laterally, okay. They run laterally and towards the costochondral junction they break, okay. That means they give branches near the costochondral junction, okay. This is costochondral junction. They break up, and they are responsible supply to this part of the anterior wall of the thorax. So these were the two intercostal anterior intercostal arteries in each space. Now let us come to the posterior intercostal artery. Where is the posterior? Yes, okay. The posterior intercostal artery, this arises from the descending thoracic aorta. So this is a thoracic vertebrae, and then this is the descending thoracic aorta in the upper first and second space, okay. This doesn't arise from thoracic aorta, but the superior intercostal artery, which are branches from that of the subclavian artery, okay, costocervical trunk, but that is different. We are dealing only with that of the typical so for a typical intercostal space, okay, and below also that, beyond that, the sixth space right up to the 11th space, all these intercostal artery, they are branched from the descending aorta. One artery comes on right side, one artery goes on to the left side. The artery which comes on to the right side, it has to cross the body of the thoracic vertebra or the vertebral column. It crosses the vertebral column. So this is the right side and this is the left side. Since the descending aorta lies on the left side, it doesn't crosses. Here it has to cross to come on to the right side, and then it runs in the subcostal groove, okay. And this runs above the intercostal nerve. With that relation we have already seen, okay. This is the intercostal nerve. I am drawing it with the black color because it is not showing in the yellow color. So this is the artery, okay. This is the artery which lies between the vein and nerve. Here artery lies between the vein and the nerve. Intercostal vein, intercostal artery, and it is lying into the subcostal groove, okay. Now near the angle of the rib is here, okay. The posterior intercostal artery gives origin to a collateral branch, okay. It gives origin to this collateral, just like the collateral branch of a nerve we have learned just now, okay. And it will run with the collateral branch in the same course right up to the margin of the, costochondral junction, right up to the costochondral junction, along with the nerve, along with the collateral branch of the intercostal nerve. So this is not at the same level, just in the diagram I have shown you, but this goes down close to the upper border of the lower vertebrae, and then it runs in the intercostal space, okay, parallel to the main artery. It is running parallel to the main artery. Now this main artery is running in between the intercostal muscle and the innermost intercostal, internal intercostal and innermost intercostal. That means between the second and the third layer of the intercostal muscles. This is the main trunk, okay, and this is the collateral branch. This is that cutaneous branch which will follow the nerve, cutaneous nerve, lateral cutaneous. So this is lateral cutaneous branch. Now this posterior intercostal artery terminates at the level of the costochondral junction, as I have told you. Okay, will terminate at the costochondral junction, the main trunk. Okay, and by anastomosing with the upper anterior intercostal artery. And upper anterior, this I have shown you here. There is an upper and then there is a lower. So the main trunk here, see, the upper one is the main trunk, and it will anastomose with that of the upper. This is the main trunk of the intercostal with the upper branch of the anterior intercostal artery, okay, near the costochondral junction. So this will articulate, anastomose with that of the branch of the internal thoracic or internal mammary artery, upper one in each intercostal will arise. Similarly, the collateral branch will also articulate with that of the lower intercostal, okay, lower anterior intercostal. See, this was the lower. So this will articulate with the thin branch, which is the a collateral branch, okay, which was taking origin from the main trunk. So here in anteriorly you can see the upper and lower branch in each anterior branch, okay, anterior intercostal arteries, they will articulate with the main trunk as well as with the collateral branches, okay, with the collateral branch of this. Okay, so here is the artery which will be, collateral branch is here, okay, so which will articulate here, right. So this is about the anterior and posterior intercostal arteries, which are responsible for supply of the blood to a typical intercostal space and the skin overlying over to it, okay. Thus this not only supply to the intercostal muscles, but they supply to the parietal pleura. And where is the parietal pleura? In other diagram I have shown you that it just lies deep to the muscles and ribs. So this is parietal pleura, okay, and this parietal in a stapled line, dotted line, this is the parietal pleura, and this is supplied by the nerve, intercostal nerve, as well as this intercostal arteries, okay. Then these arteries may also supply the pectoralis muscle to the breast, okay, the perforating branch of the internal mammary, which we will learn when we will go to the internal mammary or the internal thoracic artery. Then they also supply, and so the intercostal artery, they also by this branch, this lateral branch, they will supply to the breast, okay, they will supply to the breast. In case of female, they become large and supply, and to the skin. So many structures, muscle, pleura, skin, breast, okay, they are all supplied by this intercostal artery and its collateral branch, okay, and its collateral branch. Now this completes a complete short note if it comes on the intercostal artery, or blood supply of a typical intercostal artery. You have to write like this, okay, by drawing 2 or 3 diagrams, okay, by drawing 2, and write its different branches and anastomosis between anterior and the posterior intercostal arteries, right. Then we come lastly to the applied anatomy of these, okay, and applied anatomy of this is in relation to the intercostal nerve, okay, it is in relation to the intercostal nerve. In relation to the intercostal nerve, there may be, because the nerve may be irritated by various factors, okay, various regions. That means intercostal nerve we are talking of. It can be irritated. And how it can be irritated? By infection of the herpes zoster, which is a virus, okay. Herpes zoster infection takes place in the ganglia, dorsal root ganglia. And where is the dorsal root ganglia of the nerve, typically spinal nerve? Here is in the posterior root or dorsal root, there occurs a ganglia here, which is collection of sensory neurons, and if infection takes place in sensory neuron, all those sensory branches, okay, of which are supplied by these neurons, they will become painful, very severe pain. So because of the dorsal root ganglion infection by this herpes zoster virus, okay, and there will be a pain along the path of this nerve. Wherever this nerve will go, everywhere there will be severe pain in that intercostal space. If only one space is infected, then it will be only one, or adjacent spaces if more dorsal root ganglions are infected. So this is because of the irritation of the nerve. Then sometime with the rib gets fractured, okay, rib are very frequently I mean to say bones to get fractured because they are so superficial and thin, so they get fracture, and when fracture occurs, this injures the nerve which is running in the subcostal groove. So there is again the irritation and the pain is there. And Pott's disease means tuberculosis of the vertebral bodies, thoracic vertebral bodies, and when it is there, this will also produce the pain and in the course of the nerve, because it will also produce the irritation of the nerve. Now then, the second applied importance in relation to the nerve is the pus. And the pus, if it is coming along with the course of the nerve, and it usually comes, okay, I will show you here in this diagram, okay. Then let us see from this diagram itself. Okay, whenever there is an infection of the vertebral body, which is the most common site for the tubercular infection, okay, or Pott's disease, and then the pus is formed, that is the cold abscess pus or the cold pus, which without inflammatory sign, that is no redness, no pain, and then this pus can trickle along with this nerve, because the nerve is coming in along with this. Here is the dorsal root, the ventral root, trunk is formed, then it goes dorsal ramus goes posteriorly and ventral ramus comes anteriorly here with this. So this pus collects here near the intervertebral foramina, and then it trickle along with that of the course of the nerve. So wherever the nerve will be going, the pus will be also following it, okay. So the nerve tracks along course of the nerves, okay, it tracks, the pus tracks along the course of the nerve, and wherever the nerve will come out, okay, as a cutaneous nerve. See here in the dorsal ramus there will be a cutaneous nerve which will be supply the skin of the back. Then we have learned the lateral cutaneous branches, okay, and then we have learned that it will also give the anterior cutaneous branches by the margin of the sternum. So at these sites where these cutaneous nerves are perforating and coming superficially, the pus can also track here and collect beneath the skin. So these are the three different sites where the pus can collect beneath the skin, and this is swelling, there will be a swelling, but this is a cold pus which will not produce the pain. There will be swelling and deep to it, which will be, it is filled with the pus, okay, it is filled with the pus. Let us come to another applied importance, and this is nerve block for intercostal anesthesia. Whenever you want to anesthetize a space, okay, intercostal space for some surgery, okay, some other procedure, so you have to inject the anesthetic agent near the trunk, okay, here where it is forming the roots in uniting and forming the trunk. In this, that means very close to the intervertebral foramina. Then only you can anesthetize the intercostal nerve, both posteriorly on the posterior rami and to the anterior ramus, okay, to the posterior ramus and to the anterior ramus. So the injection should be on the trunk, okay, near the intervertebral foramina, right? Then when rib is used for bone graft, sometimes the rib is, and fibula, as I said in my osteology videos, that the rib is a very important bone which can be taken out easily, okay, and can be used as a bone graft. Whenever you have to take out the rib for the bone graft, then you should save these blood vessels, that is the intercostal nerves and vessels which are going. And how it is saved? You give an incision into the periosteum on its outer surface and remove the bone leaving behind the periosteum there intact, so that the nerve, rib can regrow. If periosteum is there, rib will regrow from the area where you have taken out the rib, a piece of the rib you have taken out, and then the blood vessels will also remain intact. Okay, so this is the applied in relation to the intercostal nerve. Let us come to the applied importance in relation to intercostal artery. In relation to intercostal artery. Now the intercostal artery as such is not having that any important relation, but then this artery, that is artery which we have used here, which gives the two anterior intercostal arteries, that is the internal mammary artery. Okay, this is used for the bypass operation, coronary. Whenever there is a block, this artery is used, and this artery is anastomosed with the that is the blocked end of that artery, that is coronary artery. So in the coronary bypass operation, the artery internal, which we will learn again when we will learn the internal mammary or the internal thoracic artery. Now this completes your full question on to the intercostal space, but it was a typical space because other space they differ. Okay, and this contained at least 4 short notes within it. Okay, so either you can use it as a full question or you use it as a short note also. Okay, now thank you very much for watching this long video.